It's 4:30 in the morning, and it's a really strange kind of morning. It's perfectly still. There's nothing making sound. Like, I don't think I've noticed this in the past, any other session. Even the birds seem to be not singing at all. There's no wind. Obviously, there's no cars or anything driving around at this hour. Maybe towards the later part of the session, there was a few cars that drove past, but there's just no sound. And so it's great to be up and about during this type of morning, but it makes it awfully difficult to train with metal. So I wanted to do some sumo deadlifts, and I also didn't want to do any sort of deadlifts because the bar makes sound against the plates when you kind of take the slack out of the bar. Any sort of sound of you lowering the weight on the floor, that makes a sound. Even me walking around seems like the highest sound around. So I was there walking around like a ninja, trying to get plates on and off really slowly, trying to make no sound. You have to understand, like, I live in suburbia, there's literally, I reckon my neighbor is 1, 2, maybe like 4 meters away from the barbell, right? So there's the fence, my garage, there's the fence, and then there's his house literally like half a meter away from that fence, and then it's his bedroom. So, and he probably has a window open as well. I'm just guessing, because it's a nice morning, whatever, kind of on the cooler side, and it's perfectly still, and why wouldn't you? So I'm trying to move as silently as possible, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, this is absolutely wrecking me. It's 4:30 in the morning, I'm trying to get a bloody 20 kilo plate on the bar without making a sound. It's like, this is taking a lot more energy out of me than it should be. But then I start deadlifting, and it's even worse because, I've thought about this in the past, and certainly we've had chats about this. Tempo squats, tempo deadlifts, tempo pause deadlifts. You guys have been telling me I need to do those just above the ground to strengthen my pull off the floor, the initial kind of leg drive. That's a different beast, man. It kind of reminded me of, yoga. What is yoga, man? What is Bikram yoga and these types of things? The whole thing is about moving under control, controlling your body weight. It's just a different ballgame, man. It just hits you differently. And those motor neurons are, like, I know everyone talks about speed, explosiveness and whatnot. I don't know, like on a cellular level, this is what I'm trying to think about. What is tempo of movement teaching the muscle? Is it really teaching it to be slow? Like, where did that come from? Why do we think that? Is it because the tendons are not being challenged to the same degree as, when you're, doing plyometrics, say, when you're kind of jumping and leaning onto your, legs or whatever plyometrics you're doing? Is that what the difference is? I don't think there's a difference in the muscular contraction side at all, because the muscle, all it knows is tension. And certainly as I was kind of doing these movements, I was also trying to do basically an RDL towards the end of there, because I was trying to really make no sound at all. But it got me thinking about this whole tempo business. I think the difference is just tendons and ligaments. They don't get as much force, they don't get that elasticity action going on. There's no requirement for it to kind of bounce back. I remember reading bits and pieces about this over the years, about why you shouldn't move slow and why everything needs to be powerful and explosive. But when I think about it, say in a deadlift, if you just, dip and rip, right? Grip and rip, right? That stuff where people just reach down, grab the bar and yank it off the floor. I'm not sure there's a lot of contraction going on to that middle and probably nothing in the middle portion. But maybe to finish off, because you're in a bad position at that point, it just makes me think, if you throw a punch, right? Same deal. You're generating that force in that initial bit, and everything else is momentum. So while momentum is carrying you through a certain range of motion, that part of range of motion is not really, you're not exerting force. You're just, I don't even know if you're exerting continual acceleration through that period. I've been listening to Matt Wenning and Louis Simmons and Dave Tate talk about, band work and how bands change that, because you need to accelerate throughout the whole range of motion, because there's something pushing down on you, quicker. It's accelerating you quicker than the force of gravity, the acceleration of gravity, right? So bands change that. You always need to be accelerating through that whole range of motion. But with gravity, like when you're just doing straight weight, if you just snatch it off the ground, if you just jerk it off the ground, there's going to be a whole bunch of range of motion there where you're just kind of cruising. You're not really adding anything to the bar. But tempo work, you are there literally adding stuff to the bar every second of the way. But there's no momentum. And so when we start talking about sticking points and things of that nature, maybe that's all where we need to be doing. Just slowing down. I know this is probably a really unpopular thought amongst all power lifters and power athletes, athletic athletes. There's no reason for you to be moving slow. I know Mark Ripperton, one of the first lessons I learned from him, in that, practical programming, and in the other book, I can't remember the other book, he was just like, do everything fast. And I think, I don't know exactly why, but I think this has all got to do with the tendons and the ligaments, trying to strengthen them. Because the whole idea of plyometrics, completely the other side of tempo work, the other extreme, plyometrics is all about that punch, that rebound elasticity. That's all you're trying to kind of build, that connective tissue to get stronger. But in terms of muscles, I remember reading about Pavel Tsatsouline talking about tempo work in terms of hypertrophy, and I think there's a whole bunch of research to say that it's better. For me, in flesh, it feels a lot more difficult to move things slowly. And so I know a lot of people on the other side of this say you should be looking to make your training as difficult as possible. Louis says all the time, look for things that are difficult, as in which movements you find difficult. If you're weak at sumo, do sumo. Don't just do conventional because you're good at conventional. Find things that you're crap at and then do them. Well, tempo work is really hard. So is that like an exception to the rule? It doesn't really matter if tempo is going to be hard. You don't do it. And then I remember watching J.M. Blakely, if you guys know who he is. He's been on a bunch of videos with Dave Tate. Big guy. He used to train Westside. He had something like, I don't even know how, I think he had like a 700-pound bench press or something, raw. Some monster of a human being. He talked about doing these sets of tricep pushdowns in one video where the whole freaking concentric portion takes him like 3 minutes or something like that. So really like fully slow movement, snail pace, And he talked about, protecting tendons in there, or strengthening tendons. If I'm not mistaken correctly, that's what he was saying. So he's saying that he strengthens tendons. Well, then why do we do plyometrics? It's just so much variation in what people think about. All I know is that this morning, it just feels different, man. I don't even know how much I could lift if I had to just move the bar slowly. I don't know how much of a hit my 1 rep max in the squat would be, how much the deadlift would suffer. I mean, the deadlift is a slow lift as it is. But, I'm giving everything into the bar, and it's slow, right? So then you think to yourself, okay, so what if I took 50% of my max, so let's say 130 kilos, I took that, and I moved it at the same speed that I moved the 260. Now, isn't that interesting? What would happen there? Well, it would definitely feel heavier than 130 or 50% if I was really just slowly, going through that range of motion. And then I'm just collecting all these thoughts in the back of my mind. I remember people saying, how does the saying go? Lift light weights like they're heavy so you can lift heavy weights like they're light. So what do you make out of that? I don't know if you guys remember that as well. So Does that mean I have to power through? No, it doesn't. So that means I have to treat the 60 kilo, one plate. I should treat that as though I'm lifting 200 kilos. But then other people are saying explosion everywhere. Just bang, 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 bang. Just explode. It's an interesting thought, to move 60 kilos as slow as you move 200 kilos. I think that the training effect would be, I reckon you'd be buggered, man. To be honest, I reckon you'd be exhausted. Even with 50% weight, I reckon you would be spent. I reckon you'd be spent. If you went as slow as Jay and Blakely went on those tricep pushdowns, where you take a whole freaking minute to get up to a concentric, like you would have to, obviously if you're doing a deadlift, you would have to breathe. You can't hold your breath for a damn minute. So you would have to breathe. So breathing under those conditions in a deadlift, bent over position, it's probably not the greatest idea for your core in terms of stabilizing your spine. So you wouldn't be able to do that with 80%. No way, you'd snap your spine. I guess the tricep pushdown is a safe lift. You can, there's no spinal loading. There's no requirement for you to stabilize your vertebra and intra-abdominal pressure and all that. So tricep pushdown is probably an easier one to do. But squats, deadlifts, even bench press, you got to breathe. It's an interesting thought. As I was moving this morning, I thought to myself, it's moving slowly is harder than moving quickly, man. And I don't know whether that's because I'm just used to moving quickly, and then yoga people, people that do a lot of yoga and are proficient in all those movements, maybe they find it hard to move quickly. Maybe they get achy joints if they explode quickly. Interesting, man. Interesting stuff. But yeah, weird morning, man. It was completely quiet. I'm like, what the hell are the birds, man? Is nature died or something? Like, what's going on? Completely, literally no wind, no animals anywhere. It's just me and the damn barbell and just me walking through the garage. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, why am I wrecking a racket? I'm just freaking walking. And then I open the garage, and obviously the garage is automatic. So that makes I feel like the whole damn suburb can hear my garage door open at 4:30 in the morning. And then I'm kind of tippy-toeing around the place. I gotta be more quiet. And then clunk. No matter how easily I was going, I could hear the clunk of the barbell. And I'm like, well, this is really taking a lot out of me if I have to take the slack out of the bar with silence and then lift the barbell slowly, because I don't want it to be popping around at the top end as well. And then go back down slowly and make sure that the contact on the floor is, ninja-like. Man, I'm like 2 plates, man. Like not a lot of heavy weight, but, I feel like low back, especially the last millimeter of the deadlift, you have to lower it slowly. I reckon that takes the most out of you, because it's like you're at the end range of motion, you have to control it. I don't know. I think I'm going to, tonight when I get back from work, I'm going to have a bit of a read about tempo work and what people generally think about just moving through life silently or slowly, So if you were to, I'm just thinking about the bench press now, that sticking point, if you, took 60% of or 50% of your max, and you just slowly just went through that range of motion, maybe even pumping up and down exactly where you don't want to be, and just slowly feeling that muscle, having that mind-muscle connection with that tissue that's responsible for generating force in that range of motion. Because a lot of the time, people say, fly through that sticking point. What that means is that you should create all of your force way ahead of that sticking point. So you approach that sticking point with velocity, with speed. You just jump over that hole in that range of motion, in that weakness. But what if we go the other way? We take a smaller weight and we slow down completely, basically to a halt. And then we slowly progress and we feel the tissue that's responsible for generating force, because we can develop force in that range. I don't know, you could probably make a study out of that as well. Because I know a lot of you guys have told me, to do 1.5 squats for that, sticking point in the middle. And I remember Klokov back in the day talking about really slow eccentrics. So I did that for a little bit. I remember, taking working with normal weights, but just really slowing down the eccentric. And he talked about how that built his quads and how that taught him how to, find a better bar path and squat better and whatnot. But it's interesting. It's interesting, especially for us guys who are always talking about power and explosion and speed, to go the other way and be like, let's slow it down. You just break down, man. It's just so freaking difficult to move through space slowly. Anyway, it's really weird. And I would have not thought about this if it wasn't for this morning being so damn quiet. Usually I can get away with a bit of noise, because there's wind and rustling of the leaves and birds are going off usually. Silence this morning. Weird. Couple of names to mention in this video. I've got Vladimir Martinez and Viraj Shah. Both of you fellas are much appreciated for jumping on and supporting me. Like I said last night, man, there's a whole gang of us now, man. There's almost 4 pages full of people who are supporting me. It's much appreciated, man. It really is. It really is unbelievable for me to wake up in the morning and see the emails and see the messages from Patreon. There's a couple more fellas who are, pushing in the right direction, pushing that same immovable object, that wall with you. We're going to break through, fellas. All right, guys, I need to get out of here, go to work. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.